their place in the English Channel where time seems to stand still, a tiny island called Sark. No cars, no streetlights, no police patrols, just the sound of waves crashing against cliffs and the slow creak of bicycle wheels on cobblestone paths. But hidden in this peaceful paradise lies a prison so small, it barely fits 2 men. A jail built not for punishment, but for order. A relic of a bygone era, where crime was almost non-existent and justice was personal. They call it Sark Prison, the world's smallest jail. And behind its pastel yellow walls lies a story that's stranger than fiction. Built in 1856, Sark Prison sits quietly behind the island's South Main Street, a stone structure no larger than a garden shed. It has just 2 cells, no running water, and no iron bars. Only wooden doors, each with a single peephole cut into the center. In most prisons, you hear the clanging of metal, the echo of boots, the murmurs of inmates. But here, silence rules. This isn't a place for hardened criminals. It is a place where drunken fishermen slept off their rum and trespassing tourists cooled down from a night gone wrong. And yet, for more than a century and a half, it's remained in use, still locking its wooden doors whenever order must be restored. To outsiders, it's a curiosity. To locals, it's a reminder that even the smallest communities need justice. For years, Sark was untouched by the chaos of the outside world. Until one night, the island's peace was shattered. A yacht drifted close to shore. On board were 3 men, strangers to the locals, their accents foreign, their intentions unclear. By dawn, word spread. Someone had broken into one of the old manor houses. Jewelry was missing. A family was terrified. With no police force, the island's constable, a volunteer peacekeeper, had only one place to take them: Sark Prison. For the first time in decades, its doors were locked not to detain a drunk, but to hold real suspects. The cells were cramped, the air damp and stale. The men laughed at first. But as the hours passed, and the weight of isolation pressed down, the laughter stopped. Because on Sark, there is no escape. The sea surrounds everything. The next morning, the constable called for the island's only court, a small room where the seigneur, Sark's traditional ruler, still oversaw justice like in the old days. There were no lawyers, no prosecutors, just the accused, the locals who were witnesses, and the island's ancient laws. It was justice stripped bare, raw, direct, and rooted in community. The men were fined and banished from the island, their belongings confiscated, and their names remembered. The cells, once again, stood empty. But the story of that night changed Sark forever. People began to question how long a place could hold on to such old traditions, and whether a jail with 2 tiny cells could still stand against the modern world. The last recorded person to be locked inside Sark Prison, in 2013, wasn't a criminal at all. He was a visitor, caught in a drunken argument at the local pub. Locals say he laughed as he was taken in, snapping photos and calling it the most comfortable prison in the world. But when the door shut and the constable's footsteps faded, silence filled the cell. For the next 12 hours, he was alone. No phone, no bed. Just the echo of his own voice bouncing off stone walls. He later told reporters, "You don't realize how small it is until you're inside." Today, Sark Prison stands as both a tourist attraction and a working jail. Visitors take photos in front of it, laughing and posing with handcuffs, unaware that just decades ago, this tiny cell was the island's last line of defense. It may be small, but it carries weight. But Sark Prison holds more than old stones and fading stories. In the island's archives, a single document remains sealed, marked only with a date, August 9th, 1947. Locals whisper that on that night, a man vanished after being held in the prison. No record of his release. No ship logs of him leaving the island. He was just gone. The story was never told publicly, buried under generations of silence. Some say he escaped through the back wall, others say the sea took him. But old-timers still remember the strange footprints found the next morning, leading from the prison to the cliffs, and stopping, right at the edge. The sea, calm as glass, gave nothing back. And from that day on, the cell was said to have a chill, even in the warmer summers. In 2019, a British journalist arrived on the island to film a travel piece about the world's smallest jail. He laughed at first, calling it a toy prison, a novelty for visitors. He asked to spend the night there as part of his segment, a stunt for views. The constable agreed. The cell door was closed. Cameras were set up outside. Everyone expected a light-hearted story. But by morning, the journalist was gone. The cell was locked from the inside. His equipment was left untouched. A search began, sweeping the entire island, the cliffs, the harbors, the trails. Nothing. 3 days later, his camera footage was found. The last clip showed him whispering in the dark, "There's something scratching," inside the wall. The clip ended abruptly. To this day, his disappearance remains one of Sark's unsolved mysteries. There's one man who still holds the key to Sark Prison, the island's constable. It's a position passed down through a community vote, not through force. He walks the cobbled path every evening, checking the small stone building, ensuring the locks still turn and the hinges still hold. He says the prison reminds him of something the outside world has forgotten: accountability without cruelty. When asked if the stories about disappearances and cold spots are true, he just smiles. "Every island needs its ghosts," he says. Sark just keeps them close. In early 2022, maintenance workers repairing the prison's rear wall found something unusual: a small, rusted tin wedged deep between two stones. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a letter. Its ink had faded, but the name at the bottom was clear: Thomas Gray, August 9th, 1947. The same name from the sealed record in Sark's archives. The man who vanished. The letter was short, frantic. He wrote about hearing whispers at night, about a tunnel under the prison carved before the building was ever finished. He claimed the tunnel led to the cliffs and that someone else was living below, hidden from the world. No one could confirm if the letter was genuine. But after that discovery, the old prison's walls were sealed tighter, and island officials refused further excavation. Even today, visitors say you can feel hollow space beneath the floor when you walk near the back cell, like the island itself is holding its breath. Local legend says Sark Prison has a soul, that the island's justice lives within the building, not behind it. They tell stories of travelers who claim to see movement inside the cell windows at night, even when no one's there. A faint figure, watching. A few skeptics set up cameras one summer, hoping to debunk the myth. But when they reviewed the footage, something strange appeared. In several clips, a faint outline, not a shadow, not light, but a figure pacing the narrow cell. Step for step, turn for turn. Like someone still waiting for release. The team dismissed it as glare. Locals didn't. They said the island remembers every soul it ever confined, and some it never lets go. Over a century of justice, mystery, and whispers, all inside two small rooms. Recently, a researcher from Guernsey returned to Sark with permission to scan beneath the prison floor using ground-penetrating radar. The results, never made public, were leaked online, showing a hollow cavity several meters deep. No tunnels. No remains. Just an empty space, perfectly shaped like a second cell. A cell no one ever knew existed. Days after the leak, the entrance was cemented over. No official explanation. No follow-up. Only one brief statement from the Sark constable: the island protects its own. In 2023, a woman named Evelyn Gray arrived on Sark, holding a faded photograph and an old notebook. She claimed to be the granddaughter of Thomas Gray, the man who vanished in 1947. Evelyn had spent years tracing fragments of her grandfather's story: scattered letters, old police notes, and whispers from the Channel Islands. Every lead brought her back to this one place, the smallest jail in the world. She asked to see the cell. The constable hesitated but eventually agreed. She stood inside the narrow room, her hand brushing the cold wall where the letter had been found. She whispered, "He was here." The air shifted, still, heavy, almost listening. Then she noticed something strange. Carved faintly near the base of the wall was a symbol, a small spiral with 3 dots around it. When she asked what it meant, no one could answer. But one elderly local muttered quietly, "It's not the first time that Mark has shown up here." But the story doesn't end there. Weeks later, the spiral symbol appeared again. This time, etched into the wooden frame of the cell door. No one saw who made it. No tools had been used. The carving looked burned in, as if pressed by a hot brand. Evelyn, the student who found the first symbol, took photos, determined to prove it wasn't a coincidence. But the next morning, the images on her phone were corrupted, just static lines and blurred figures. One picture, however, was clearer than the rest. It showed something behind her. A shape, pale, almost transparent, standing in the far corner of the cell. She left the island 2 days later, refusing to speak to the press. But on a podcast interview months after, her voice trembled as she said, "It wasn't empty. I could feel him in there. And he wasn't alone." That same year, locals began to notice the constable visiting the prison at night more frequently. No lights, no tourists, just the faint glow of his lantern moving through the fog. He claimed he was just checking the locks, routine duty. But one fisherman swore he heard something else, voices coming from inside the cell. 2, maybe 3 of them. When questioned, the constable simply said, "Sometimes, you have to remind the past that it's still locked away." After that night, he stopped speaking about the prison altogether. But people noticed he always carried the key with him, even when he slept. Sark's tourist office keeps a logbook of every visitor. In October 2024, the island clerk found something odd. 2 names were written in shaky handwriting, Thomas Gray and Evelyn Gray. The signature line beneath them was blank. No checkout time. And no one remembered seeing either of them that day. The CCTV camera near the building? It was offline for exactly 1 hour. When power returned, the feed showed the prison door slightly open, then closing on its own. Since that incident, Sark Prison has been closed to the public for maintenance. No official statement, no reopening date. Just a wooden sign that reads, "Under restoration, do not enter." But locals know better. They say the island feels different now. The night's quieter, the air heavier. As if the prison isn't empty, but listening again. Every so often, someone claims to hear the sound of a door creaking open in the distance. And then closing. Always closing. A few weeks later, geology students visiting from Guernsey ran unauthorized ground scans near the prison. This time, the scans revealed something shocking. Not just one void, but a network of small chambers stretching under the main street, leading toward the cliffs. When authorities were informed, they dismissed it as a glitch. But the students shared the data online before it was deleted. The shapes beneath the prison weren't random. Each one matched the size of a human body, lying perfectly still. By early 2025, rumors had spread. Journalists and thrill seekers began arriving, hoping to catch something on camera. Most left disappointed. But one local reporter, filming during a storm, captured audio that would make headlines. As thunder rolled, a faint, distorted voice could be heard repeating the same words, "Still here. Still waiting." When analyzed, experts found the frequency didn't match a human vocal range. It was coming from inside the wall. Soon after, the island of Sark experienced something it hadn't felt in over a century, a tremor. It lasted barely 20 seconds, but in that short moment, the ground near the old prison cracked open. By morning, a fisher ran across the path, stopping exactly at the prison's front door. The constable arrived to find the door ajar. Inside, the cell floor had shifted, revealing a hollow pocket beneath one of the stone slabs. And inside that space, a small brass locket with the initials TG. Inside the locket was a faded photo of a young man in uniform and a little girl. The back read, "To Evelyn. Someday you'll understand." After the tremor, the prison was sealed again, this time with steel. But each morning, the door was found open, every bolt and padlock untouched, yet unlatched. Shops nearby began closing early. Locals avoided the street altogether, because some swore they saw a shadow pacing the cell, as if testing the door. 2 months later, an anonymous file appeared online, Sark Prison, Restricted Records. It contained a confidential report from 1947 describing Thomas Gray's disappearance. It stated he claimed to hear whispers from below and had dug through the cell floor. The report's final line was chilling. "We heard him scream once. Then silence. We found no hole, but the stone had changed." In April 2025, the constable turned in his badge, leaving a single note, "The door opens itself now. The island doesn't need me anymore." 2 weeks later, his house was found empty. The key to Sark Prison was gone. His bicycle was found near the cliffs, facing the sea. No footprints, just silence. That June, tourists on a ferry reported a soft, pulsating light glowing from beneath the prison grounds. Officials denied it, but satellite images showed faint heat signatures. That week, an island-wide blackout occurred. When the lights returned, the whispering from the walls was louder, clearer. And in that whisper, they heard words no one could explain. "The cell was never meant for us." Days later, all public access to Sark Prison was banned. The area was fenced off, the building covered with tarps, guarded day and night. But the islanders still talk. They say at night, if you listen carefully when the wind is still, you can hear faint, rhythmic knocking. Like someone, deep below, is still waiting to be let out.
2 months after Sark Prison was let off, an envelope arrived at the Guernsey Historical Office, no return address, no postage. Just the words, "Do not ignore this, insidious handwritten note." Dated Juli 3, tahun 2025, the ink was fresh, the handwriting identical to that of the missing constable. It read, "The legate Bennett, the prison is the from below it, from within, at whom it breakfast, and it remember. The cows were never built to hold men, they were built to contain what men unearthed. Attached was a photograph the last on tacket of the prison before it was covered and tear. In the window of the far jail, a silhouette, but it wasn't the only person. It was tall, tall, smaller, almost childlike, but looking old. In the corner of the image, that spiral symbol burned into the stone, glowing faintly, as if alive. Weeks later, the government announced the prison would remain permanently closed. The official reason was the safety or restoration. It simply read, containment. That word spread like a wildfire, first to besar, then the world. Historians try to rationalize it. Skeptics mocked it, but those who had been on the island who had walked its narrow lanes and stood near that silent little giant tree now so making felt wrong. The ground itself seemed to home. The air near the cliff shimmered at night. Birds no longer landed on the prison roof. The locals say it is not haunted, not cursed, juicy. Awake, in Oktober tahun 2025, months after the world had moved on, a lone visitor arrived on the island Evelyn Dry, no camera tistema, no prank, say while to strike the door, the prison gates still guarded, and knelt by the locked door, whispering softly, "Ken." She left a small brass locket at the base of the wall the same on a phone beneath the floorboards. As she turned to left, guards reported a sound from inside, a fine, metallic click, like a lock turning, and then silence, beacon of silence that follows you. That naked, Sark exploded again, just for a moment, golden like a fire tapped beneath the earth. When the glow faded, so did the spiral bomb on the wall. It had vanished. Today, Sark Prison is rallied. Tourists take pictures from afar, but the locals never go near. Because on this island, everyone knows. Some things are small for a reason, and some walls were built to keep the world safe from what lurks inside them. The prison may be quiet now, but if you ever visit Sark, and the wind stops blowing, don't listen too closely. You may just hear a voice whispering the words that have echoed here for over a century. The child was never meant for us. But for what we've on it, next time, we'll uncover what connects Sark as forgotten tunnels to a classified British military map from the 1940s and who a missing war team experiment made explain the impossible glow beneath the island.